Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to talk with you, Jenna. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited and honored to be here.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, we got to connect recently in person at our mutual friend Keisha's Empower Her conference here in Denver. And I went up to you. I'm like, I've been following you. I know you. I feel like I know you. And I
Yeah.
just said, we need to chat. I want to have you on my podcast. And you're like, let's do it.
Well, I'm so glad you did because we figured out in that conversation we have so many parallels of life and just I adore you, and the more and more I get to know you, even just like chatting before we hopped on here, it's like you're just a beautiful soul. And so I feel honored that our paths have
Oh
crossed.
my gosh. Thank you so much. Well, when I got to learn more about you, and I know you have a medical background, as do I, you were an orthopedic physician's assistant and you focus on education, your growth and your career for many, many years and recently shifted out of
Yes.
that. And I'll have you talk all about your new role and what you're doing with your podcast as well, Next Level You, which is amazing.
Thank you.
And you were a soccer coach too for many years, which I also have a background as a college athlete in volleyball. I want to just open it up to you to kind of share a little bit about your background and what you were doing and kind of what you're doing now.
Yeah, of course. Well, I always say, the Cliff Note version of going back. So I am born and raised Midwest girl. I grew up in Ohio. I still live here. I was raised by a single mom, have an alcoholic father. He still is an alcoholic. And it's a part of my story that I've tapped into recently of just like diving back into my inner child. But because of that, my mom showed me, what it meant or looked like to be a strong, independent woman. And I took that as I had to conquer the world on my own. And in some ways, it was like a great thing. I was a very high achiever. I like checked all the boxes. I had to be the best of the best in academics and athletics because athletics was my thing. And I decided at a young age I was going to be valedictorian on my
Wow.
class. I was going to get a full ride to play Division I college soccer. And, I did that. And I also knew from a young age that I wanted to go into the medical field. As an athlete, we deal with injuries, and also I loved science. And so I went to PA school after college. I became an orthopedic PA, got a phenomenal job here in Columbus, Ohio. Was blessed to coach high school soccer for 8 years, both at the high
Wow.
school and club level. And then I fulfilled another dream of mine and started coaching college soccer, and I coached college soccer for 6 years. And so, along the way, I was really just checking those boxes,
Mm,
and they were all amazing things. And, I had married my best friend. We met when I was 19. He's the only guy I've ever
wow.
said I love you to.
Wow.
We had a beautiful relationship, and then which we're going to dive into today, had our first son, and it was great. And then we struggled with infertility, secondary infertility, and then finally had our beautiful baby boy, our second child. We redid our whole house. And I'm telling you all this to get context of just like from the outside, like who Jenna Klopfenstein, which is my name now, but Jenna Cooper was, and to Jenna Klopfenstein, it was like, I've always been confident, strong, like it's from the outside. And I've done really well in life. And,
Mm-hmm.
extrinsically, like people saw me as a happy go-getter, high achiever, doing the thing. I made six figures in my early 20s, had a great relationship. And I got to a point not that long ago, a few years ago, where I got very curious of, is this all for me? Because I was living this beautiful dream that a younger version, a prior version of myself had for me. I had the job. I never thought I would be able to coach college soccer and be an orthopedic PA at the same time. And I was doing it and I loved it. I loved coaching. I loved my job. And that's really important. If you're listening, I'm not the person that crumbled and like hated her life. I actually was really happy and had a good life and was living a dream life to a lot of people, a prior version of myself's dream. But I got to a point, Lisa, that I got really curious of in my early 30s. I was 33 and I said, this cannot be it for me. If I have so many years ahead of me, like there's got to be more out there. And I got really curious what that meant for me. And so at that time, I was an orthopedic PA. I was a college soccer coach. I was married. I had my babies. I had my beautiful house in the community. And I said, for a lot of time, I said, you should just be grateful. And
Wow.
then fast forward, I realized you can be grateful and want more. And
Yeah.
so I decided to, driving home from work one day, I decided to start a podcast because I loved podcasting. I loved using my voice. I thought, what better way to just start somewhere when you have no clue where you're going to go, but you want to make an impact. And I started my podcast, and I was really blessed that my podcast took off, and I met incredible people, and I kept building relationships with people, getting in rooms. And through that, I realized, well, I love coaching. I loved coaching for the 14 years I did of soccer. I love sports, right? But I wasn't going to do that forever because I had little babies, and the schedule just wasn't conducive to the life that I wanted to live. And so through that, I started getting really curious about mentorship. I loved being a mentor, but like, who could I mentor? People kept coming to me for an array of things. And I built my business, and long story short, to catch us up to where we are, I left my job as an orthopedic PA and college soccer coach at the end of 2022. I hosted my first big live event in April 2023, and I've built my business in 2023. I can say proudly, and just like to ways that I never thought I would. I've been able to impact the most incredible heart-centered people as my clients. I've hosted my retreat. I have a mastermind. Like we retired my
Wow.
husband from his 14-year teaching career. And it's just, I'm really sitting in a place of alignment and gratitude and looking through a lens that I never would have looked through not that long ago. And I just keep telling everybody, I am such a mirror for what is possible for you. Nobody's on a pedestal. There's no hierarchy in the world. I'm not telling you all the things that I've done or the big transformation I've had for any other reason to say, like, your story, your experiences, your everything that's within you is to be used for me, and you can do this. And it's like, I get so fired up. I can go, there's so many dimensions of my story that I can keep going on, but I'm going to put a pin in it there, let you kind of bounce
Oh my
off, and then we
gosh.
can go any direction.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's no accident that I went up to you. I'm like, I needed to talk with you. And I'm just, like you said, Amir, you are reflecting what's possible. And I strive to do that for other women too. And it's like, you hear a calling and you listen to those. I talk about this a lot. You listen to the whispers, you listen to your heart and the nudges, and you're like, something more, there's more for me.
Yep.
Oh, I was happy too as an OT, but it was like, then I was like, what is it? There's something else. And my fertility led to me starting what I'm doing, and what you went through, with listening and wanting more. I want to go into that a little bit more too. Like, were you wanting to coach and were people coming to you and you thought like, oh, this orthopedic, PA, it's not for me anymore. Like, what was it again that shifted you? What was it like?
Yeah. So I loved being an orthopedic PA.
Yeah.
I love my boss. I had a great schedule. I loved surgery. I was doing hip and knee replacements, and
Oh,
I
wow.
loved it. I was a science geek. I still
You did, but
am.
you worked on the people that sent them to me in rehab.
Yeah, exactly. But anytime you work for somebody else or you work under a certain title, you are limiting certain parts of you. So
Yeah.
was I all of me as a PA? Well, no, because I had to conform in some ways of what the PA role was.
Yeah.
And it wasn't to say I wasn't happy or I wasn't a lot of parts of me. But it really wasn't all of me. And I knew coaching those young women that I coached for 14 years, high school and collegiate levels, I impacted their lives in a way that I didn't impact anybody else's lives. Yes, I love the sport. It gets me fired up. I'm still an athlete. You get it. Once an athlete, always an athlete. Like, I love that adrenaline, and you don't get that a lot in adult world. So coaching, I love game day. I love all of that. But it wasn't about that to me anymore. It was about these young women were going through some real stuff. And when I was their age, I didn't have somebody in my corner to talk to me and care about me outside of what I did academically, what I did athletically. I was an athlete, and I was somebody producing in the classroom. I was blessed to do that, but there was so much more of me that nobody, in my opinion, or my perspective, cared. And so to me, I said, I'm going to give these girls a mentor and a coach that sees them and loves them for them first, life, and coaching is my avenue. And so when I knew that I was going to walk away from coaching, right, I still desired that impact, right,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
change people's lives. And I know that sounds cliche, but like really to the root of it, to help them see the good within them, to help them see that more within them, to help them really step into their power and own all of them, because life makes us hide parts of us. And so I knew that. Um,
Mm,
and I also knew that I desired things that being a PA wouldn't allow me to do. For
mm,
example, these might sound little to some people, but like I woke up and went into surgery before my kids woke up. My house was dark. I left. Wouldn't have been able to walk my kids to school ever. I
wow.
wouldn't have been able to pick up my kids most days from school. I wanted to sit on my back porch and have coffee with my husband or by myself and not get into the morning hustle. And we know what the morning hustle is. We all have it. It's like, throw your backpack, you do this, I got to get to work, throwing on my shoes. And it's like, I knew that I didn't desire that. For as much as I loved being a PA and I
Yeah.
loved coaching, it was on other people's terms and it was
Mm.
restricting me.
I can
And
so
so,
relate. I can so relate to
yeah.
this.
Yeah, and so I
Mhm.
said, okay, what does this look like? How do I get that impact that I had as a
Mhm.
college soccer coach? And also, like, how do I be an advocate like I was with my patients? Because I loved my patients. I was an advocate for them. Sometimes because we were joint replacements, it was elderly. Like I was the conversation that they looked forward to all day. So how do I take elements of the things that I love and create a life also that I love? And I've been able to do so as a growth coach and a speaker. And it's been the most beautiful thing. And it started with me as a podcast, just getting my voice out, making those connections. So, yeah, people came to me. And honestly, it was just me sharing my story and my passions and what I had learned. And we complicate this. Like I was just sharing my story, my
Mhm.
experiences, what I
Mhm.
learned, being vulnerable. And people wanted to lean in and they wanted help. They wanted help to get through it. They also just wanted somebody to listen to them and to reflect back to them things that maybe they thought, but they weren't fully processing, or give them a different perspective. And so I started then coaching because people came out to me and I was mentoring an array of things. And now since I've become a little bit more focused, but that's really where it started.
You're giving such permission,
Mm-hmm.
just the simple impact that we have of sharing our story, and people
Yes.
do want to lean in and hear more. I
Yeah.
love that you listen to that calling. Gosh, thank you for giving a little bit more background to that, and just
Yeah.
how soccer and coaching, really, that impact you made on those young girls. You're impacting women, older women now, right? And entrepreneurs and ambitious women now today. So you've still kept that element of like that coaching very much alive.
Yeah. And when I get to, people ask me all the time, are you going to go back to coaching? My former player that I coached in college just helped me with my mastermind retreat. Like I have a real relationship with them. Will I ever go back to coaching? Well, you never know, right? But I feel like I'm doing that now. I had a program, Life Beyond the Jersey, for former female collegiate athletes in their 20s. And it was like, yeah, I'm still doing that, but I'm not limiting myself to a certain team or to a certain
Yeah.
age. And, now I mentor men as well. It's like, why limit yourself? Because we're all
Mhm.
humans at the end of the day. And we're like, it doesn't matter if you're 20 or you're 60. I have that
Mhm.
whole array of my clients. And it's like, we just need to humanize people.
Yeah.
And we all have the same emotions. We all go through a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Gosh, there's a lot I want to cover. And a big part of our connection too is having gone through fertility struggles.
Mhm.
I
Yes.
want to jump into a bit of that. So you met your husband, you were 19. And when did you get married?
I was 19 when I met him, which for
Uh-huh.
me, I was a sophomore in college. We got married when I was 24.
Okay. And I know for you both wanted to start a family. You always wanted to be a mom. You wanted to be parents. And for your first son, Jacob, no troubles, right? Easy
Mhm.
breezy, right?
Right.
Thank
Yes.
goodness.
Yes.
Lucky, lucky. And so share what happened next. Can you give a little breakdown of kind of how the path unfolded
Yeah, for
for you?
sure. And
I
I
know
just want to,
many women can relate to this. Having secondary infertility is what you went through.
yeah. And I just want to say how much, I respect you and admire you for holding this space
Mm.
for women going through this. I mean, it really gives me chills because It truly was the darkest time of my life. And you talk about hiding parts of you. I hid a lot in those years, and it gets me like choked up to think about it.
Mm.
You know, and you don't have to hide. And you're not going through it alone. And so to have this beautiful space that you're giving women,
Thank you.
yeah. It's
Well,
just
I've heard you say on your podcast, it's like making our sisterhood stronger,
yeah.
and how our stories are meant to be shared. And the more we do open up and share, that's why I wanted to have you on too. It's like you have such valuable, gems here to share that I know women are just going to like soak up. And
Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah, so I was blessed, like I said, to meet my husband when I was 19. The most incredible man, partner, friend, everything in the world, honestly. And we're blessed to do life together, and continue to grow together. But what we both knew was, for us, one of the greatest things is our foundation, our priorities match to a T. And it really was our faith, and then family. And people like say those, but like really like our foundation is God. And then we really, really cared about having a beautiful marriage and creating a beautiful family with children. Isaac, my husband, is one of three. I am one of two, my sister. And we knew that we wanted multiple children. Now, we never, when I'm young and I'm like in my early 20s, I'm like, I want 4 kids. He's a guy. I don't know. Some guys might say how many kids they want, but he knew he wanted multiple kids. And so when we got to a point that we were married and we were ready to think about kids, I'll be honest, I heard fertility issues. I heard infertility. I knew the statistics being in the medical field. But it's like anything, it's not real until it's your story,
Totally. Oh,
right?
oh yeah.
And we had Jacob within like the first year of trying, and that's our oldest, and he's 6 years old now. And then, like a lot of people were like, our kids will be a couple years apart, that beautiful age of 2.5 years apart. And because we didn't struggle with Jacob, we started trying, and we like thought it was going to happen, and I know if you're listening, you get it. Like, thought it was going to happen. A little over a year went by. All the emotions of that. And I finally went to my OB and I wanted testing, and she kind of told me, and I love her, it's not her, but like, you had a healthy baby, like you're fine, you're healthy, like a year's normal. So I believed her. And again, like, no disrespect to her, I love her. Never thought to test him, never thought to test me. And then we got to like a year and a half, and I was like, something is just not right. And it wasn't until around the 2-year mark of trying, which is wild for me to say, but I think I don't know. We had convinced ourselves that like all the things people convince you, it's the stress, it's you wanting it so badly. It's, you're healthy, it's going to happen. And then as a person of faith, in God's timing, not yours, all the things we kept hearing. So we were like, why are we forcing this? Whatever, let's just relax. Well, around the 2-year mark, I was like, no, we want kids. So we saw a fertility specialist, and he's an amazing man here in Columbus. And he said to us, he's like, you can wait for another miracle, or you can do some intervention, because Jacob obviously was a miracle. And Isaac and I are very transparent about this. So like for us, it ended up being that Isaac's motility count was down. His sperm count was down, which was a really hard thing. And if you want to talk about that as well, like the really hard thing for his masculinity is like, he put it on himself, And so now we were both struggling with our own stuff. This was our new reality, and we had to make a decision. And I remember walking in the back of our house, and he, who has such a strong faith, he's like, I just don't know, like, is this God telling us that like something, and he couldn't really figure it out. And now me, who has faith in science, I was like, no, there's intervention for a reason. And this was our conversation, right? There was so much more in it that I can go into if you want. But at that point, we decided like we wanted more than one kid. Like we wanted more than one more kid. And so
at this point, had you done IUIs? I think
we hadn't done anything at this point.
Anything.
I had done Clomid, I think, a couple rounds. And so then he went on Clomid, he got tested. Like I said, we found the root of our difficulty. So we both did Clomid. Then we did, this is like fast forward, like we did IUI, failed, did IUI, failed, did IUI, failed, had 3 failed IUIs. And then we were like, is this real? Like, we are going to do IVF. We are healthy. Nothing has changed. We work out, we eat well, we are not overweight, we have a healthy baby. And you know that, like, that all those feelings sink into like, is this really our reality? And it was, and it makes me sweat now because there were so many elements of that. There was so many days that, I cried every day, I think, for 2 years. I mean, I don't even know if that's an exaggeration, but every time I was in my car, a song triggered me. Every time I worked out in our basement, I'd be bawling. And it was just a lot of spiraling, not letting people in for me to be there because I was always the strong one. There's just a lot of depth to these years of my life that I can expand on.
Well, it changes you on a deep level. I remember hearing you say that you questioned yourself, your life, your faith, like all these things that you were just confronted with, like the spiral, right? Like deep questioning. You changed through this journey. You really changed through this.
Yeah, all the questions. And then you're trying to be there for other people. And I'm trying to be there for my husband and tell him it's not his fault, but I'm internally struggling, like at the same time, my sister was moving. Like there was just a lot. Life was obviously happening, but to me, I couldn't get out of the consumption that I wanted a child so badly and it wasn't happening. And what are all the reasons why this isn't happening? And it was just, that spiral of emotions and that consuming you and like, I'm stronger than this. I'm better than, like, we can do this. And it was just like, oh my goodness. And so we were blessed to then get pregnant the first time we did IVF. We have embryos that are still, frozen. And the journey of IVF was another journey in itself, right? The shots, the pills, the hormones, the testing, all the things. And so wherever you want to go with this, I am happy to talk anything.
I relate to you. We had male factor issues as well. And we needed IVF. I knew I also had some uterine polyps that needed to be taken out. And so I can so relate to that. Just, you realize you get to a point where you accept and are grateful, I think, to have IVF as a potential option to grow your family.
Yeah. I remember too, for anybody listening to this, that it is the male side of it. I remember my husband being like, is my laptop on my lap too long? Is that why? Like going down the Google search of like the heat from a laptop. Like, is that it? Like like you get so in your head of all the things that you did. Right. Yeah. I remember when I was pregnant finally, and I did the hard workout and I had this traumatic experience that I was bleeding and I thought I was having a miscarriage, and it was at my son's birthday party. And for that, it seemed like the longest, like 16 hours of my life before I could get into that ultrasound the next morning to check my baby. And I was like, you are so reckless. Like, you were pregnant. You did a hard workout. What? It's like you just self-talk to yourself in ways that you would never before because you're so consumed with what's going on.
Was that when you had, I think you said, a subchorionic hemorrhage? I had one too, a little bleeding, and we had so much in common. I was like freaking out, like, oh my gosh, like what happened, everything was okay. And that's common often, those subchorionic hemorrhages. Oh my gosh. I've heard you talk about how kind of you became very bitter, very angry. These are things like common for those of us who've gone through or going through the path, have lived this, feeling so lost, so what? I mean, I hear you say you're crying every day, and like, what supported you? How did you find it within you to keep going? Or who was in your team? Who was supporting you? Were you doing this alone? Like, I know your husband was there for you. But.
Yeah. I will say, now that I'm years out of it, I can reflect back and say that I didn't go about it the healthy way. So if anybody ever asks for my input or my, advice, so to speak, I would encourage you to find your people, find your outlets like this podcast, or there's so many support groups. there's probably somebody that's really close to you that's going through the same thing and needs you. But for me,
Mhm.
I hid, and I say that like it wasn't healthy because for all my years of my life, the athlete in me, the achiever in me, the strong, confident little
Mhm.
girl that conquered the world, she didn't want to feel weak and she didn't want to feel like I was burdening other people. So what I did was I cried a lot alone in my car, in my basement. And I total honesty, I lashed out on the people that tried to be there for me. My mom, my sister, my best friend, my husband, and it
Mhm.
wasn't healthy. Then I got to a point that I don't know what happened. Honestly, I could make something up, but I was working out my basement and I said, "You are so lonely right now.
Mhm.
Um, you need to let somebody help you." Like I said this to myself. And to everybody else, it didn't look like I was lonely, right? Because I
Right.
like
You put on the face.
I put on that face in my
Yeah.
career, my friendships. And
Mhm.
so I found one friend that because I didn't like to talk about it a lot, but I found one friend that allowed me just to talk. And I was very clear with her. I was like, I don't want you to tell me it's going to be okay. I don't want you to tell me this is God's plan. I don't want you to tell me that I'm strong or whatever. Like, I know that sounds weird, but I don't want you to tell me those things. I just want you to listen. I want you to
Mhm.
give me a hug if you feel whatever. Like, I want you to let me cry to you so it's not by
Mhm.
myself. I need to release to somebody. And she did. She sat on my couch night after night and just let me do that. I said the same thing to my husband and my sister and my mom. And those were my four people. And I'm like, I don't want you guys to tell me these certain things that trigger me. I just need you to listen and be there and hold space for
Mhm.
me. And
Mhm.
that to me was game changing. That was freeing. And what they said to me was I remember saying, I just need you to know that you're there, that you're holding space for me, that you love me, that you're praying for me, and say these words, whatever you need, I'm here. You just let me know.
Mhm.
And to me, that was a lot less pressure and it was a lot less like triggering. And it helped me come out of that bitterness that I sat in for a long time when I was lonely and trying to do it
Yeah.
myself. And people didn't know what I needed. And people kept saying things that actually made me more bitter. Like, you're going to be okay. This is God's plan. Trust. And I'm like, I don't want to hear that. But they don't know that unless you communicate that with them.
Yeah, you really did set those boundaries, right? And just
Yeah,
setting kind of that, putting that out there. And so sometimes that's what people need to hear is like they want to help us. They don't know how. So it's kind of
exactly.
sometimes up to us to kind of set the tone or what we expect or what we need. I love that you did that and created that container of this is what I accept and need.
Yeah.
Um, oh my gosh. And I know being an athlete and having that kind of mindset, that athlete mentality, that's something I think you pull into
Mhm.
your coaching that you do with your individuals today. And did you tap into like at some point, like how did you realize the full circle with being an athlete? Did that support you? I know for myself, I kind of pulled it, like tapped into that, like doing the shots, for example, by myself.
Yep.
I'm like, I'm going to give myself, because my husband hated needles too. It's like, I'm just
Yes.
going to take the power in my hands and like suck it up and do my shot and athlete mentality. Like, I got this. I've
Yeah.
gone through hard shit before. I'm like, I'm doing this, So how was that for you? Did you tap into that inner athlete?
For sure. I mean, I'm an athlete. I am an
Yeah.
athlete. I say it all the time. There's so many parallels to
Mhm.
athletics and whatever that is for you. Obviously, Lisa, for you and me, it's the athlete in us. And the game gave me life lessons and skills that I wouldn't have gotten elsewhere because that was my way of life. I mean, I started playing sports at 4, and
Yeah.
I still
Yeah.
play sports now as an
Yeah.
adult. It's like, but the biggest characteristics of being an athlete that ring true in the infertility moments of my life and this journey were one, I had a lot of reps of resiliency,
Oh
of
yeah.
hard shit happening and me having to get back up. And I also knew, the athlete in me knew that success, happy times, the good doesn't build the character,
You're
right?
right. You're right.
It's really the challenges and the failures. And so
Yeah.
that to me is the biggest one, that in that moment of, listen, back in that time, I was very in my masculine energy, very like hands on the reins, trying to control my whole life. And that's where that bitterness came from, because I wasn't in control. And ultimately, I know God's in control of my life. But like for me, of like, oh, I want this now, I can work hard and get this. That
Mm.
wasn't fertility. I wanted a baby really bad. No matter how hard I worked, I wasn't going to get it the way that I wanted to get it. And it's like, as an athlete, you put in the reps, you run the sprint, you're going to get like, so my brain was thinking about something in an unhealthy way. But the healthy way that being an athlete helped me is I had gotten knocked down and got back up again. I had faced adversity and challenges, and I had risen again. And that resiliency that's instilled in you as an athlete, it is just in your nature. And I'm saying, like, there's so many characteristics, but when you talk about infertility journey,
Yeah.
that's the one, is that resiliency and that knowing that you're not going to go through the journey of life or trying to be a mother or anything without some setbacks. But that's why they're there, is to make you better, to show you that resiliency that you have inside of you. And sitting here now, just like sports, when I didn't play or I didn't start a game, that was a blessing for me, but I couldn't see it in the time, just like I couldn't see the fertility
Mm.
crappy part. Sorry, I almost said a bad word, but
You
like
can, you can say it. You can say
the poop
it.
in that moment. On the other side of things,
Yeah.
those are the moments that have made me equipped to be where I'm at today, to be a mentor, to be the mom I am, to be the partner I am, to speak on stages like I do with the passion, the fire that I do. It's because of that. It's because of those moments in
Mm.
sports, those moments in life, like infertility, that I thought there's no way I'm getting back up again. And I got back up because I've
Mm.
done the reps.
Wow. I just, yeah, I feel all of this so much. Mindset. How big was that mindset piece for you?
Oh, I mean, mindset's really everything. I say, like, I have foundations of my foundation in everything is love. And then my foundation in like growth, whether that's sports or my business journey or in life, is really like being able to change the way you think and control those thoughts that are in your head that turn into your actions and your words and your beliefs and all the things. And so, um,
Mm.
yeah, I alluded to earlier, my self-talk was
Mm.
very unhealthy, and toxic for a little while. And that's when I was sitting in the bitterness. When I
Yeah.
was able to really coach myself, like I had coached myself as an athlete or in other hard times in my life that didn't look like this, um, and switch it and say, like, look what you've all gotten through. Like,
Mm.
and I've really started to switch that self-talk and came at it from more of a, pumping myself up, honestly, looking myself in the mirror and being like, you can't sit here. Like, you can't sit here. This isn't giving you life. It's literally not giving you the life that you desire, the baby that you desire. It's not healthy for your marriage. You're walking on eggshells. It's not healthy for your friendships. You're like, they don't know, and I was saying things to myself of like, you can do this. You can change. You can get out of this. And I was going back to those moments in my life that I had gotten through it, that I had survived, that I had been resilient. And to me, that's how I got through. Was I changed.
Mm.
Again, I had those mindset shifts. And then when I saw myself reverting back, I had written down the people that I was going to. I had
Mhm.
reached out then to one of those 4 people that I said, I'm like, I'm not in a good place. I'm going back. And I brought them in. And to me, yes, there's so much inner work that I talk about all the time, like the inner work, the mindset that you do daily, and it's daily
Yeah.
discipline. It's living disciplined over default. The default way for me to live was very much on autopilot. Woe is me. This isn't going to happen. This is my life. The discipline way was like getting up in the morning and deciding, like, you are no longer sitting in the bitterness and like allowing this to consume you. You are going to do what you can. And it was like being disciplined in my thoughts over that default, and just, again, one foot in front of another,
Yeah.
one day at a time, bringing people in with me to hold me accountable, and really talking to myself in the mirror. I say it, but like talking to myself in the mirror like I would one of my players, or I would one of my clients or my friends, and be like, Jenna, you got this. Come
Yeah.
on. Like, you got this. Like we do on a fitness test as an athlete, where you're like, I can't do another sprint in the Man U. And you're like, I'm going to get down there. It's like,
Yeah.
take yourself back to who, like, to me, it is that athlete. Take yourself back to where you feel the most alive and like you, and
Mm.
channel that mindset, channel that energy. And that's what gets you through the really hard life stuff.
Oh, this is gold. This is gold. I love how you said discipline over default, right?
Yeah.
Discipline over default. And the words we say to ourselves, they are so powerful. So I love it. You bring up the self-talk. And did you have like a phrase, a mantra, something you were repeating to yourself? Or was, I know for me, mine, and it's on the wall, it's always expect something wonderful to happen. I was in that energy and vibration of like, I'm expecting good things to come my way. And I was
Mhm.
just in that like expecting whether it's good news or, staying in the vibration of just like, it's all good. I'm great. It's all happening for me, kind of
Yeah.
thing. But
You
not that it
know,
wasn't hard, but
yeah, well, we and Isaac and I had on our mirrors at that time, God will test you, do hard things. And it was just a testament to that we were strong enough to have those, or he wouldn't give them to us.
Mm,
And, now it's trusting the unfolding and that everything happens for you.
yeah, yeah.
And you don't necessarily have to know it within like the moment, and you most of the time don't. But if you believe it and you come at it from that angle, and I 100% believe that, is
Mhm.
trust the unfolding and trust that everything's happening for you. And that includes the challenges. It includes the darkness. It includes the times that you're putting your hands up and you're like, why me? Why again? Right?
Yeah.
They've been the greatest blessings in my life. They've made me, um, they made me
Yeah.
who I am. And so those are probably the biggest ones that I would say.
Yeah, you're leading me to that question of like, how has your fertility journey changed you? Like, how
Mm.
has it, looking back at like all that you went through? And I know it changed me for the better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Didn't see it at the time, but I always say IVF is a transformative journey, and it's how
Yeah.
you look at it, right? Is it for the better or for the worse? Right?
Yeah,
Um,
there's so many ways. It really was one of the greatest blessings in my life, as weird as that's not. Now it's also
no.
the darkest time in my life. And
Mhm.
I'm saying that clear out. So if you're in the thick of it right now and you say like, Jenna, how is this a blessing? I'm with you. Like, I'm with you. I was told you how dark I was during it, in it. Um, but it
Mhm.
strengthened my marriage. It strengthened,
Mhm.
what I knew I was capable of. And it also has made me so much more aware of my words, what
Mhm.
people are going through,
Oh yeah.
right? It's opened up me to be vulnerable. It's also, I feel like I've been an empathetic person, but like it's made me more empathetic.
Mhm.
It's also made me realize that like if somebody like says something hurtful or does something, I don't know what they're going through, just like people didn't know what I was going through at that time. So it's actually allowed me to humanize people a lot more, which I honestly have never thought that I didn't. But
Mhm.
it just opened my eyes to we all go through a lot of stuff in our journey. And so it's allowed me to love people on a deeper level.
Mhm.
It's allowed Isaac and I to have an even deeper bond because we went through it together and we got through it together and we continue to do it together. And every little challenge that you can really get through with your partner strengthens the communication, strengthens your
Mhm.
love, strengthens your partnership.
Mhm.
And I also proved to myself the strength that I really have, what I'm really capable of. And I've learned a scroll of lessons of
Mhm.
just how important it is to ask for help, to be vulnerable, that it's okay not to be okay, that nobody's okay all the time, and it's okay. So it softened me in ways.
Yeah.
And, in that moment, I remember saying, Lisa, God, if you give me another child, I won't ask for anything again. And here's the thing, as much as we want to say that's true, it's probably not true, and it's okay. I thought the next thing I prayed about, I was selfish. Again, these weird thoughts that we tell ourselves, and it's like, no, no, give yourself grace, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so a lot, just
Wow. Wow.
so much it's taught me.
That's so beautiful. Oh my gosh. And your second little one, how old is he?
Jonah is 2.5.
Do you have a six? And I have a 6-year-old, 6-year-old and 2.5. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Do you feel like it's changed your parenting or you as a mom? Like,
Mm.
I can speak to that, but I want to hear kind of your thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember like when Jonah was born, listen, Jacob was our first child. So it was like all the feelings that come from that. Um,
Mm.
and then when Jonah was born, it was looking at him and holding him and feeling him and realizing how true it is that they're miracles. And there's so much that happens that we hear, that
Mm.
children's are miracles, but like the science geek of me could geek out on that side, but like they're truly miracles. And
Mhm.
how much we had went through for this little human and that he was here and he was healthy. And I'll tell you, like every every cry, every like late night, every whatever, I was grateful for. And it's not to say that it wasn't hard. I mean, I
No,
if
I'm with you.
it
I'm with you.
yeah, like it's still hard. You're still tired. You're
Yeah.
still like going through the
Yeah.
stuff, but you also sit and you're like, oh, but I have it. Like, oh my gosh, the baby's waking me up. And
Yeah.
so for me as a mom, um, it actually is a big part of why I left my job too. Because I also realize how big of miracles they are and how not that I've always wanted to be a mom, but like how important they are and how much that they look at me and that like we get to spend 18 years that they're in within our house if we're lucky, and it's like, no, I want every single second with these little miracles that I'm blessed to be their
Mm.
mom. And we have done that as a family. And it's like, so yeah, has it changed me as a mom? Absolutely. Because the gratitude for the hard and the good, and also just wanting to cherish every moment and realize that like not everybody gets this opportunity. And I don't take that lightly. Like being a mom, being a parent is a huge opportunity for good. For
Yeah.
good. You get to literally impact these little humans' lives
Oh
daily.
my gosh. I'm crying. I'm like, I feel you so much. We had our one embryo, one healthy one that hold on for us. And we're two blessings. This conversation has touched me so much. I just love you. You're amazing. Um, Share with everybody, like kind of how, if they want to learn more about you, I know you have an event coming up in April
Yeah.
next year and just like all the incredible things you're doing, like I'll include in the show notes too, but this conversation has just really been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you. Honestly, it's been yes,
Mm.
it's been amazing. We could go on, I
I
feel like,
know I could keep
for a
talking.
while. But you know why? And it's really important for me to like point that out. I do a lot of podcast interviews, on my podcast, on other people's, and it's like when it's so organic and genuine and like from a heart and you're feeling each other. And it's like, yeah, this isn't about the podcast episode or how many listens or,
No.
it is about you who's listening. It is about you for us to say, like, we see you, we hear you, we love you, to give you this. It is about that. But it's also about you and I sitting here and really feeling each other and having that connection too. And that to me is so special because if we didn't have our podcast, we wouldn't have that. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, thank you. I feel, just such a deeper connection to you in these, however, 40, whatever minutes we've been on here. But if you are listening to this, I really mean this. I love, love, love just connecting with people and getting to know you, learning about you and your dreams and your hardships, all the things. I mean, all of it. And so I am on Instagram at Jenna.Klopfenstein. It's a long name. She'll put it in the show notes. My website is JennaKlopfenstein.com, and you can stay up on all the ways to work with me. And like my events and everything going on. My podcast is Next Level You. It is my brand. It's the athlete in me. It's the growth coach in me.
Yeah.
Because you have a next level inside you. It's just, it
Mhm.
just needs to be unlocked for you to step into it and step into your power. And Lisa said, I have my event coming up. I am so excited for 2024 for Next Level You Live. It is going to be so special. It's big event energy, but also intimacy of a smaller event. I'm going to cap it at 100 this year to really have the most impactful experience. And it's going to be amazing. It's April 19th and 20th in Columbus, Ohio. And we can chat about all the details. We can put the link in the show notes. But honestly, you know, I'm a growth coach for a reason. I'm not just business. I'm not just life. It's an integration of both. It's humanizing you. And I love what I do. I love connecting with people. And I always say there's a way to work together if you want to. There's a way to just connect if your heart feels led that way. And I would love it.
Oh my gosh. So good. I'll include it all below. So, oh my gosh. Thank you so, so much.
Oh, thank you.
Bye.